Is there anything you did where you thought you were in the clear, but years down the line it came to bite you in the ass? Took my mom's CC when I was 15 to get past an age gate on a porn site. It said all over it wouldn't charge. Thought I was good for weeks. But noticed my parents on the phone with CC company a lot. Turns out they were being billed like $60 a month and they didn't know what it was. They were about to report it for fraud, and then they finally thought to ask me if I knew what this thing was. I knew I had to come clean, so I did. Was grounded for like a year. Not me, but an interesting story nonetheless. I've been told there was a dude in the Netherlands that raped a girl. She reported it to the police and they tried to track his DNA. They couldn't find a match and she couldn't describe him. So the search kinda got to a halt. A few years later this dude steals a bike, just a simple bicycle. He gets arrested for petty theft. They administered him and got DNA samples from him. As you can guess, they found out they linked. And as far as I know he's still in prison for that rape that happened years ago. Yeah, all my password were the name of this girl I loved in high school. I never thought anything of it until I had a party literally 15 years later and she was one of the attendees. Anyways, it got real awkward when she asked for my Wi-Fi password. These DNA tests are shedding light on a lot of old family secrets. I have 2 friends who found extra siblings. In both cases parents were dead when they found out. I was 22, drove east across the country in January to go to college in Virginia. My license is Utah. Got a ticket for speeding in Iowa. Thought I'm never going back to Iowa, I'm just going to ignore this ticket. The following April, I got pulled over in Virginia. Turns out the states talk to each other. My Utah license was revoked due to my unpaid ticket in Iowa. Didn't exercise much for like a decade. I work at a finance company and there was a computer and fitness reimbursement program. People were buying items, requesting reimbursement and then returning them. The company was able to get return receipts from Apple and Best Buy. Tons of people were fired years afterwards when they thought they were in the clear. To clarify, I was not among them, but it was a big deal. Edit. Additional information. When you applied for reimbursement, you were required to submit a receipt. Somehow the company was able to get Apple and Best Buy to confirm if an item was returned. Personally, I'm surprised and a bit concerned that those companies would report customer info to a third party. Not me, but something I watched happen. Around 2003/4 this software came out that could compare papers to each other to automatically look for plagiarism. A popular class at my university was known as the easy way to get a science gen rec out of the way. It was so popular that all the frats and sororities would send their non-STEM majors to it and then help them along through it. Yeah, so the professor used this new software program and came up with a few hundred clear cases of plagiarism on papers. At a school with a zero tolerance policy on cheating, caught once, get expelled. This included people multiple years post-graduation who got their degrees revoked. I was like 13, and I stole some stuff from school, got arrested, all that fun stuff. Put on probation. When I was 21 and trying to join the Air Force, it almost prevented them from letting me in. Heroin. My friend one time told me you got off on the ground floor. Meaning I did my thing, had some struggles with addiction, but was able to clean my act up before I ruined my life, got arrested, etc. A clean break, more or less. About 10 years later. Surprise, you have Hep C. Not anymore though. Luckily, my insurance covered it. Went through the treatment process and have been free and clear for about 5 years now. All said, I consider myself very fortunate. When I was around 9, I learned the word rape through the internet. From context I thought it meant beat up really badly. I told my dad I rape every bug that comes into the house. This caused him to scream at me, after which I apologized and decided to look up what it actually meant. Almost a decade later my dad introduced me to one of his old friends right after church. The friend shouted out, "Ha! Do you still like raping spiders?" The crowd of churchgoers nearby clearly heard it and gave me a whole array of dirty looks. I've never felt welcome there since then. When I was 13, I was staying at my uncle's house. I couldn't sleep and was browsing TV at 1 a.m. Found a dirty movie channel. 3 weeks later my mom confronts me saying that my uncle was charged $10 for that movie on his bill. I was in a Visual Basic programming class, and for whatever reason, the teacher allowed us to submit the user interface showing the code working, and not the actual code. As you can imagine, I quickly realized I didn't have to write any code. I just had to make the user interface look like it was running the proper code and outputting the correct result. This went on for the whole year, and I was the top student in the class because not only did I do every assignment, but I was done the quickest. When the teacher left the class for whatever reason, I was put in charge. I had complete trust of the teacher. Now the fuck up. On the last day of class we had a final assignment, worth as much as all the others. It just was the hardest as it incorporated everything we learned throughout the year. I again did my thing and submitted the assignment and got an A+. Nothing unusual. Then student after student started coming up to the teacher and saying the assignment was impossible. None of the other top students could figure out the solution. So the teacher proudly says, "Hello Jello 2016, why don't you show everyone your code and how you came up with the solution?" The look of disappointment and realization that filled her face is something I will never forget. Extended employee discount to relative, accessed through company website. Years go by, and I forget I even did it. Relative abused the discount, spending literally thousands by buying shit for her own friends. Company opens fraud investigation against me as result. While I'm eventually cleared, it basically put me to the front of the line when the company downsized. Edit. To be clear, extending this discount wasn't against any rules. Said person literally had her own login. Edit 2. This person spent thousands of dollars. It was flagged for possible fraud, like when a credit card is stolen. I'm very okay holding a grudge over it. The amount of victim blaming on this post is ridiculous. Taking out student loans. Went to a for-profit college. First mistake, was told to take extra loans for living expenses. Second mistake, let loans interest compound. Third mistake. It gets worse, but I don't feel like rehashing too many stupid mistakes all at once. Edit. Thanks for the silver. However, feel free to donate that money to me. I slept with someone else's wife. A decade later, their son slept with mine. Teeth. Yes, I'm addicted to chocolate and always have been, so that didn't help. But I have been on medication on and off for years and thought I had gotten away with it. In the last couple of years I have had more fillings, root canals, and extractions than a normal person would have in 10 years. Seem to break one every month. My high school thought it would be a good idea to start a bank, teach kids about finance and all that. Well, freshman year I took the maximum loan of a hefty $20 and had zero intention of paying them back. Shouldn't loan 14-year-old hood rats money. 4 years later, after moving a bit, ended up back in that school district. Different school though. The day my cap and gown came in they wouldn't give it to me until I drove to my old school and paid them back the $20. Side note, the school bank was only open for 1 week because no one paid them back. Every kid in school took out a $20 loan. When I showed up to pay them back there was a line of about 30 kids in front of me. Edit. There was no interest on the loans. We really should have just had a class. And for those wondering, I went to high school in the South, so no, they didn't teach us punctuation. 6 years ago I created a Reddit account and called myself Dick Nipples. About 5 years and 100,000 masturbation jokes later, my wife got on our laptop and discovered my account that I had forgotten to close out of. I broke my hand in high school. I was just messing around with friends and punched a concrete wall, got a boxer's fracture. I told my mom that I fell and landed on my hand weird and broke it. Years later, we are at family dinner with my fiance, who had been friends with me in high school and knew the real story. She didn't know that my family didn't know the real story. Someone mentions when I broke my hand and my fiance says, "Was that when you punched a wall?" Everyone's head snap at me in a collective what? Still haven't lived that down. Diabetes. My partner used to live with their parents, so whenever I came to stay we'd have to be very quiet when trying to shag. We did this for *YEARS* before moving in together. One night, we were having supper with their mother and an aunt, and the topic turned to noise. Mother-in-law looked at us with genuine affection and said, "These two think that they're so quiet *THEY wish*, and took a big swig of her martini while cackling madly. I miss her. When 14 I saw one of our cats dragging a bracelet out of my sister's bedroom. I grabbed it and put it on top of a picture frame and forgot I did it. Years later, I was 18, my dad took down the frame, found the bracelet, asked my sister and I why it was up there. I remembered and explained why. Turns out it was mom's bracelet my sister borrowed without asking, and me putting it there and leaving for 4 years made my mom think she lost it. Worst part was they focused on the bracelet on the picture frame for 4 years and not that my sister was stealing jewelry. Worked as a contractor on a version 1.0 Microsoft product in 2005. Came back in 2009 to work on version 2.0. Looking at my own poorly commented code. I have no idea what I was thinking when I wrote this. Was arrested for possession of weed as a teenager. UK removed it from records a few years later because I was a minor. Tried to immigrate to the US 12 years later. Much hassle and grief ensued 7 years after finally getting green card. Got refused a visitor visa to Canada for the same reason. I'm sure there are other countries out there who will pull the same shit. I was a truck driver and I was very by the book. I wouldn't run a load that was overweight. I wouldn't drive with burnt out marker lights. I wouldn't leave without my pre-trip inspection. I even received an award from the company I was driving for when they randomly checked cab videos and saw that I avoided an accident with a third-party vehicle because of my situational awareness. I was able to slow down right before they cut me off, jumping across 3 lanes of traffic to make an exit. At the time, the manager we had loved me because he knew I was a safe bet. Couple years later that manager retires and we get a new one. A new manager who cared more about numbers and money than safety. He wanted me to leave with bad truck and I would never do it. I would insist on having it corrected, which meant delays anywhere from half an hour to 2 or 3 hours. He hated that. One time the delay was enough to cost him his bonus, and he had to cancel a vacation trip somewhere with his family. A few months later the company gets sold, and a couple of months after that they are instructed to reduce staffing by a certain percent. Guess who is one of the first people to be let go? I live in Texas, an at-will state. You can be fired for any reason without explanation or validation. You could walk into work one day and your boss says you have blue eyes and I decided I don't like blue eyes, you're fired. You would have nothing to do about it except find a new job. He cold done that. But did he? No. He decided to be a vindictive asshole. He manufactured records over a weekend to make it look like I had an accident and failed to report it. Even had a video evidence, never mind that the truck in the video was not the truck that I drove the preceding Friday, and when I said the other driver would collaborate my story if they got in contact with him, he basically said we're not gonna do that. So he marked me as non-rehireable for failure to report an accident, which basically blacklisted me from all respectable trucking companies in the area. I went from making almost $26 an hour to make it $10 an hour. This caused my wife and I to lose our home, a vehicle, and lost our medical insurance, which we were beginning to use to aid in our infertility problems. We wanted a child. 4 years later we are still trying to pick up the financial pieces, and I yearn for the day I can get my r/pro revenge.